Close your eyes and let the centuries slip softly, away carrying you back to the quiet cobblestone streets of Renaissance Florence, where a misunderstood man sits alone at a wooden desk, writing not of malice, but of the deeply human world he loved. It is midnight in the City of Lilies, and a gentle rain has begun to fall, tapping softly against the terracotta roofs and washing the narrow stone alleyways that wind through the sleeping city. The distant, muted tolling of a church bell echoes across the dark river Arno, marking the late hour while the rest of the world rests on the heavy, comforting blanket of night. Here, in a small, dimly lit room, the rich scent of old parchment and melted beeswax fills the air, mingling with the faint, earthy fragrance of damp wool and wood smoke drifting up from the stone hearth. Niccolo Machiavelli, a name that history would eventually wrap in deep shadows and sharp edges, sits quietly in the warm, golden glow of a single, slow-burning candle. He is not the dark mastermind of political intrigue that later generations would imagine, but merely a weary, observant scholar, a thoughtful man who has spent his life trying to understand the intricate, beautiful, and deeply flawed nature of the people around him. His fingers, stained with ink, move methodically across the heavy pages of a velvet-bound ledger, dipping his quill into the dark inkwell with a rhythmic, soothing precision that measures the passing moments. As the rain continues its gentle, rhythmic descent, the city of Florence sleeps, its grand marble facades and soaring domes softened by the darkness, resting quietly after the busy hum of the daytime markets. The Arno River flows peacefully under the arches of the stone bridges, its dark waters reflecting the occasional trembling light of a solitary lantern swaying gently in the nighttime breeze. This is a city of artists and thinkers, all breathing in unison beneath the vast, starless sky, held safely within the ancient walls that have stood strong for generations. Inside the small study, the warmth of the fading fire keeps the damp chill of the night at bay, creating a sanctuary of quiet reflection where the noise of the outside world simply fades away into a comfortable hush. The heavy wooden desk is covered with carefully stacked papers, leather-bound volumes of ancient histories, and scattered notes written in a flowing, elegant hand, all waiting patiently for the scholar's attention. The soft hiss of the candle flame provides a constant, reassuring companion, its light dancing slowly across Niccolo's tired but peaceful face, highlighting the lines of thought and experience etched into his features by the passage of time. For too long, the story of this man has been painted in the harsh, glaring light of ambition and deceit, his words taken out of the quiet context in which they were written and transformed into a symbol of ruthlessness. But tonight, as the shadows gather in the corners of the room and the rain murmurs its soft lullaby against the window pane, we are going to slowly strip away that heavy, uncomfortable myth. We are going to look past the political noise and the grand historical narratives to find a simple man who merely sought stability in a deeply uncertain world, a man who loved his home and wished only to see it safe from the shifting winds of fortune. Imagine yourself sitting in a worn, comfortable chair in the corner of this very room, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, simply watching him work as the hours drift lazily by. There's no rush here, no demands on your time, and no urgent tasks waiting to be completed, leaving you entirely free to just breathe and listen to the comforting, repetitive sound of the quill scratching softly against the thick, creamy paper. We are opening the heavy velvet-bound book of his life, not to judge or analyze, but to observe its pages like a series of quiet, beautiful paintings, each one a testament to the quiet dignity of a life lived in observation. The warmth of the room seems to settle deeply into your bones, easing the tension of the day and inviting a profound sense of relaxation to wash over you. Just as the gentle rain washes the city streets outside, Niccolo pauses in his writing, resting his quill gently on the edge of the inkwell, and leans back in his sturdy wooden chair, letting his eyes close for a long, peaceful moment as he gathers his thoughts. In this quiet pause, you can almost hear the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing, a calming metronome that anchors the room in absolute stillness, while the fire pops softly in the grate, sending a tiny shower of warm, orange sparks drifting up the dark chimney. He reaches out to trim the wick of his candle, the small movement casting long, slow shadows across the plastered walls, reminding us that even the most enduring histories are made up of these tiny moments of quiet routine. The history of Renaissance Italy is so often told as a grand, sweeping drama, but the truth is usually found in the quiet spaces, in the ordinary lives of men who walk the cobblestones and breathe the morning air. Niccolo was one of these men, finding comfort in the steady, predictable patterns of his daily work, seeking wisdom in the dusty, silent libraries where the voices of the ancient world whispered their eternal truths. The rain outside begins to soften into a fine, whispering mist, wrapping the city of Florence in a delicate silver shroud that mutes the remaining sounds of the night, turning the world into a quiet, peaceful sanctuary. The scholar opens his eyes, taking a deep, slow breath of the warm, scented air, and picks up his quill, once more ready to begin the next careful sentence, while the ink flows smoothly onto the page like a dark, steady river. Let the steady rhythm of his work, the warmth of the fire and the gentle pattering of the rain carry you away, drifting slowly into the past. As we turn the very first page of his story and step quietly into the beautiful, peaceful world of his youth, let the shadows of the midnight study gently dissolve, softening into the pale, warm sunlight of a beautiful Tuscan spring, carrying us back to the year 1469. It is May in the city of Florence, a time when the air is sweet with the fragrance of blooming flowers, and the surrounding hills are painted in rich, vibrant shades of green. This is the era when the city is known far and wide as the jewel of Renaissance Italy, a place where art and philosophy are blossoming under the gentle, encouraging warmth of a long and prosperous peace. In a modest, quiet house, tucked away from the grandest piazzas, a second son is born to Bernardo and Bartolomea, a boy they name Niccolo, who arrives in a world that feels as though it is slowly waking from a long slumber to embrace a golden age of beauty and learning. The Machiavelli family name is old and respected, carrying the quiet dignity of generations past, even if their present circumstances are humble and their home is far removed from the dazzling wealth of the city banking families. Bernardo is a lawyer of modest means, a thoughtful and meticulous man who prefers the quiet company of his ledgers and his small rural farm to the loud, bustling centers of commerce. He is a careful guardian of his family, keeping detailed diaries where he records the simple, rhythmic expenses of their daily life, finding a deep sense of comfort in the orderly flow of numbers. While he cannot offer his sons a vast inheritance of gold or sweeping estates, Bernardo possesses a treasure that he values above all else, a profound love for learning that he gently passes down to his children, planting seeds of curiosity that will grow slowly over a lifetime. Imagine the young Niccolo sitting quietly in his father's small library, a room filled with the rich, earthy scent of aging paper, worn leather bindings, and the faint, sweet dust that dances lazily in the shafts of afternoon sunlight pouring through the narrow window. Bernardo cannot afford to hire expensive tutors for his boy, so he takes on the joyful task himself, sitting side by side with his son at a heavy wooden table, their heads bowed together over thick, cream-colored pages covered in elegant script. Slowly and patiently, the father teaches the son the musical rhythms of Latin, the ancient language of diplomacy and history, letting the unfamiliar words roll softly off the boy's tongue as the hours drift peacefully by. The room is enveloped in a comforting hush, broken only by the gentle turning of pages and the soft, encouraging murmur of Bernardo's voice, creating a warm cocoon of learning that shelters the boy from the busy world outside. Together, they read the works of the great Roman historian Livy, journeying through time to explore a distant past filled with marble temples, sweeping togas, and the quiet dignity of the ancient republic. To the young boy, these historical accounts are grand, sweeping stories of human nature, tales of men who built societies and sought to find balance in a complex world. As he listens to his father read, Niccolo closes his eyes and imagines the ancient streets of Rome, feeling a deep, quiet connection to those long-gone thinkers who looked at the world with the same gentle curiosity that is beginning to take root in his own mind. The ancient texts provide a comforting foundation for the boy, a steady, unwavering anchor of knowledge that will stay with him as he grows, wrapping him in the enduring wisdom of the past. When the daily lessons are finished, Niccolo steps out of the quiet library and into the vibrant, sun-drenched streets of Florence, a city that feels like an open-air museum slowly being sculpted by the hands of brilliant artists. The great dome of the cathedral dominates the skyline, a breathtaking monument to human patience and artistry. its vast, curved tiles baking warmly under the gentle Italian sun, watching over the city like a silent, benevolent guardian. Under the quiet guidance of Lorenzo de' Medici, known simply as the Magnificent Florence has become a peaceful sanctuary for creativity, where painters and poets are encouraged to dream, and the soft, rhythmic sound of chisels striking marble echoes beautifully to the narrow stone alleyways. It is a city that celebrates the quiet power of human potential, where every corner holds a new fresco or a delicate statue, bringing a sense of profound wonder to a boy wandering slowly through the cobblestone streets. Niccolo walks without hurry, letting the warm afternoon breeze rustle through his simple clothes as he observes the world around him with wide, thoughtful eyes, taking in the sights and sounds of a society living in a delicate, beautiful harmony. He watches the merchants organizing their colorful fabrics, the scholars engaged in soft, respectful conversation on the steps of the piazzas, and the ordinary citizens moving gracefully through their daily routines, all of them part of a vast, living tapestry that he is slowly beginning to understand. There is no judgment in his young mind, only a quiet, gentle absorption of the deeply human behaviors that surround him, gathering quiet insights that he will carry with him forever. As the afternoon slowly deepens into early evening, the golden light begins to soften, casting long, peaceful shadows across the grand facades of the palazzas and painting the sky in delicate strokes of pale pink and lavender. Niccolo finds his way to the banks of the river Arno, where the water flows with a slow, hypnotic grace, winding its way through the heart of the city and out toward the rolling green hills of the Tuscan countryside. He stands quietly by the stone wall of a bridge, resting his chin on his hands, simply watching the gentle currents pull small leaves and twigs downstream, carrying them away on a quiet, endless journey toward the sea. The water reflects the fading colors of the sunset, creating a shimmering, moving painting that captures the tranquil beauty of a day slowly coming to its natural rest. Here, by the peaceful river, the young boy feels a deep, comforting connection to the city that raised him. Surrounded by the quiet hum of Florence settling down for the evening as the first few lanterns are lit along the water's edge, the ancient knowledge he absorbed in his father's study blends seamlessly with the living, breathing beauty of the world around him, forming a calm, centered understanding of life that feels as steady and reliable as the ancient stones beneath his feet. The stars gradually begin to appear in the darkening sky, wrapping Florence in a blanket of cool, serene night air. As Niccolo finally turns to walk back to his modest home, the world is perfectly still, resting gently in the quiet embrace of a peaceful era, waiting softly for the gentle dawn of the years to come. As the golden years of childhood gradually soften into the steady, quiet rhythm of adulthood, the passage of time washes over the city of Florence like the slow, patient turning of the seasons. The young boy who once watched the leaves float down the river, Arno, has grown into a thoughtful, observant man of 29. His mind filled with the ancient wisdom of his father's library, and his heart anchored deeply in the cobblestone streets of his beloved home. It is the year 1498, and a new chapter is quietly unfolding in Niccolo's life, drawing him away from the sunlit piazzas and into the cool, protective embrace of the Palazzo della Signoria, the great stone fortress that stands as the steady beating heart of the Florentine Republic. Walking through the towering wooden doors of the palazzo, Niccolo leaves behind the bright, colorful hum of the merchant stalls and enters a world of grand, echoing halls and serene, quiet purpose. The thick stone walls of the building provide a deep, comforting sense of permanence, insulating the interior from the heat of the midday sun and wrapping the long corridors in a pleasant, grounding coolness. High above, vaulted ceilings painted with fading frescoes watch over the steady flow of clerks, diplomats, and magistrates who move gracefully through the shadows, their soft leather shoes scuffing gently against the smooth terracotta floor tiles. The air here is different, carrying the dry, historic scent of aging parchment-polished wood, and the faint, sweet trace of beeswax candles that burn steadily in the alcoves, casting a warm, golden glow into the corners of the vast rooms. Niccolo has been appointed to the second Chancery, a humble but vital role where the daily lifeblood of the Republic flows not through grand speeches or the marching of soldiers, but through the careful, methodical organization of letters and ledgers. He is not a man of vast wealth or sweeping power, but rather a quiet caretaker of the city he loves, finding a profound sense of peace in the predictable, orderly routines of civil service. His workspace is a sturdy, heavy oak desk tucked into a quiet corner of a large, sunlit room where tall, narrow windows look out over the red-tiled roofs of Florence, framing the distant rolling hills of Tuscany in a perfect, picturesque square. Here, surrounded by towering shelves of leather-bound archives and neatly tied bundles of correspondence, he settles into a comfortable, deeply satisfying daily rhythm that anchors his mind and soothes his spirit. Listen to the quiet, rhythmic sounds of his work, a steady, calming metronome that measures the passing hours in a symphony of soft, productive noises. There is the satisfying, crisp rustle of thick, cream-colored paper as he gently unfolds a new dispatch from a neighboring town, smoothing the edges with the palm of his hand to prepare the blank surface for his thoughts. He dips his freshly sharpened quill into a small, heavy glass inkwell, listening to the soft, wet tap of the feather against the rim before bringing the nib down to the page. The scratching of the pen is a constant, reassuring whisper in the quiet room, as his elegant, flowing script fills the blank spaces with careful, measured words, translating the complex needs of the Republic into clear, organized thoughts. When a letter is perfectly finished, Niccolo carefully rests his quill and reaches for a stick of deep red sealing wax, holding it patiently over the small, steady flame of a tabletop candle. He watches as the hard wax slowly begins to soften and melt, forming a glossy dark crimson droplet that falls heavily onto the folded edge of the paper, releasing a rich, smoky aroma that mingles beautifully with the scent of the ink. With a firm, deliberate motion, he presses a heavy brass seal into the warm wax, holding it there for a long, quiet moment before gently pulling it away to reveal the proud emblem of Florence, perfectly preserved in the Harding seal. This tactile, repetitive process of writing, folding, melting, and stamping becomes a form of quiet meditation for him, a physical connection to the safety and security of the city he is working so diligently to protect. Outside the thick glass of the window, the muffled sounds of the city drift up to his desk, blending harmoniously with the muted conversations taking place in the grand hall outside his door. He can hear the quiet clatter of wooden cartwheels rolling slowly over the ancient stone streets, the distant rhythmic striking of a blacksmith's hammer, and the soft tolling of the neighborhood church bells marking the peaceful passage of the afternoon. Inside the Chancery, colleagues pass by his desk with polite, whispered greetings, exchanging pleasantries and sharing quiet observations about the day's tasks, creating a warm, supportive atmosphere of shared purpose. There is no rush, no frantic energy, just the steady, reassuring hum of a community working together to maintain the delicate, beautiful balance of their home. For Niccolo, this modest administrative work is not a burden, but a deep, profound honor, a way to weave his own small thread into the grand, enduring tapestry of Florentine history. He does not desire the heavy, complicated crown of a ruler or the loud, fleeting glory of a military commander. He simply wants to be useful to apply the lessons he learned in his father's quiet library to the practical, everyday needs of the people. As he carefully archives a stack of completed documents, tying them securely with a soft leather ribbon and placing them onto a wooden shelf, he feels a quiet, grounding satisfaction in knowing that his efforts are helping to keep the Republic safe and stable. He is a guardian of details, a protector of routine, finding true beauty in the simple act of maintaining order in a world that so often leans toward uncertainty. As the long afternoon gradually stretches into early evening, the bright, pale light in the tall windows begins to soften, turning a warm, honeyed gold that washes over Niccolo's desk and illuminates the dust motes dancing lazily in the air. The sounds of the Chancery begin to quiet down as clerks and diplomats slowly gather their belongings, extinguishing their candles and making their way down the wide, stone staircases toward the darkening streets below. Niccolo stays for a few moments longer, enjoying the profound, empty stillness of the large room, taking a deep, cleansing breath of the cool evening air that drifts in through the slightly open window. He carefully cleans his quill, wipes the remaining ink from his fingers with a soft cloth, and neatly aligns the few remaining papers on his desk, ensuring that everything is perfectly ready for the quiet dawn of a new day. Stepping out of the Palazzo della Signoria and into the cool blue twilight of the Florentine evening, he joins the gentle stream of citizens, walking slowly back to their homes, their faces softly illuminated by the warm, flickering glow of the newly lit street lanterns. The air is fresh and crisp, carrying the comforting sense of wood smoke and baking bread from the nearby kitchens, a gentle reminder of the simple, enduring pleasures of domestic life. Walking over the ancient cobblestones, his shoulders relaxed and his mind pleasantly tired from a day of meaningful work, Niccolo feels a deep, unwavering connection to the beautiful city around him, resting comfortably in the knowledge that he is exactly where he is meant to be. As the years slowly turn, the steady, predictable routine of the Chancery begins to open up into a wider, more expansive world, drawing Niccolo away from his familiar oak desk and out into the vast, winding roads of Renaissance Europe. The leaders of the Florentine Republic, recognizing the quiet brilliance of his careful observations, ask him to serve as an envoy, a trusted messenger who can carry the delicate threads of diplomacy across deep valleys and high mountain passes. Packing his leather saddlebags with thick parchment sturdy quills and warm woolen clothing, he bids a gentle farewell to his family and rides out through the heavy stone gates of Florence, just as the early morning mist begins to lift from the rolling Tuscan hills. The familiar sights of the city dome and the bell tower gradually fade into the distance, replaced by the endless quiet horizons of the open road, marking the beginning of a long, solitary journey that will shape the contours of his mind for the rest of his life. Traveling in these ancient times is a slow, methodical process, dictated not by the rushed demands of a modern clock, but by the natural rhythms of the sun, the weather, and the steady, rhythmic footfalls of a sturdy horse. Day after day, Niccolo finds a deep, meditative comfort in the gentle swaying of the saddle, listening to the reassuring crunch of hooves on dirt paths and the soft jingling of the leather reins. The landscape changes slowly around him, shifting from the sun-baked earth of his homeland to the cooler, deeper greens of the northern territories, where the air grows crisp and the trees stand tall and silent like ancient sentinels guarding the valleys. There is a profound, expansive peace to be found in this kind of travel, a quiet detachment from the busy world of the city that allows his thoughts to stretch out and breathe, untangle from the daily complexities of administrative life. As winter slowly approaches, his journeys carry him upward into the towering and majestic peaks of the Alps, where a heavy blanket of pristine snow covers the jagged rocks and quiets the entire world into a beautiful, crystalline silence. The air here is thin and biting, carrying the sharp, clean scent of pine needles and ice, while his breath plumes softly in the freezing air, mingling with the steam rising gently from his tired horse. He rides wrapped in thick layers of heavy wool and fur, his face half hidden against the biting chill, feeling remarkably small amidst the vast, enduring grandeur of the snow-capped mountains. The crunch of the horse's hooves breaking through the frozen crust of the snow is the only sound for miles, a steady, hypnotic rhythm that carries him safely over the treacherous passes and down into the sprawling, peaceful valleys of the French countryside. Arriving at the grand, sprawling court of King Louis XII, Niccolo steps into a world far removed from the modest republican halls of Florence, finding himself surrounded by the vast, quiet wealth of a major European monarchy. Yet he does not allow the heavy tapestries or the velvet-clad nobility to overwhelm him, choosing instead to remain quietly on the edges of the grand rooms, watching the slow, complex dance of power with a calm, deeply analytical eye. He is a humble clerk in a world of kings, possessing no vast wealth or military might to leverage, relying entirely on his quiet patience and his ability to see the simple, human motivations hiding beneath the heavy crowns and the polite courtly smiles. He observes the slow negotiations and the careful diplomacy not as a stressful contest, but as a fascinating, moving painting, gathering quiet insights into the nature of leadership and the gentle currents of influence that guide the fate of nations. When the long, exhausting days at court finally come to an end, Niccolo retreats to the quiet sanctuary of a modest roadside inn, where the heavy wooden doors close firmly against the freezing winter wind, locking the cold out in the dark night. Inside, the deep radiating warmth of a massive stone hearth thaws his chilled bones, the fire popping and crackling softly as it consumes thick logs of seasoned oak, filling the low-ceilinged room with the rich, comforting scent of wood smoke and roasted chestnuts. Sitting alone at a small scarred wooden table in the corner, holding a cup of warm spiced wine in his ink-stained hands, he finally finds a moment of complete, uninterrupted stillness, a solitary traveler resting peacefully in the comforting embrace of a temporary home. He takes out his portable inkwell and his traveling papers, and by the soft, flickering light of a single tallow candle, he writes his long, detailed letters back to Florence, translating the vast complexities of foreign courts into clear, measured words for the city he loves. Months later, the winding roads of his diplomatic life carry him back across the mountains and into the wintry landscape of the Romagna, to the military encampment of the formidable Cesare Borgia, a man whose name echoes softly through the valleys of Italy. History often remembers Borgia as an intimidating figure, a force of quiet ambition, but to Niccolo, observing from his safe, detached distance, the Duke is simply another fascinating study in the intricate mechanics of human behavior and political survival. He spends the cold winter months watching Borgia operate, observing how the Duke brings a strict, methodical order to a chaotic territory, acting with a calm, precise efficiency that leaves the Florentine envoy quietly captivated. There is no fear in Niccolo's mind, only a deep, scholarly curiosity, as he watches the movements of power unfold like a slow, deliberate game of chess played out on the snowy plains of the Italian countryside. Niccolo walks through the quiet military camps in the fading afternoon light, his boots crunching softly on the frost-hardened ground, taking mental notes of the disciplined soldiers and the highly organized supply lines that keep the army functioning in the dead of winter. He stands in the shadows of the large canvas tents, listening to the muffled conversations and the distant clatter of the blacksmiths piecing together the subtle differences between a fragile, chaotic republic and the rigid, enduring stability of a well-ordered state. These careful, quiet observations will slowly gather in his mind over the coming years, planting the deep intellectual seeds that will eventually blossom into his greatest written works, forged not in the heat of conflict, but in the quiet, reflective spaces between the moments of historical action. As another long winter evening slowly descends over the quiet countryside, wrapping the world in a soft, dark blanket of shadows, Niccolo returns once more to his warm, solitary room at the inn, his mind filled with the gentle hum of newly gathered wisdom. He unties the heavy leather laces of his traveling boots, pulling them off with a quiet sigh of relief, and stretches his tired legs out toward the glowing embers of the dying fire. Feeling a profound sense of physical and mental release wash over him, outside the frost-covered window pane, the snow begins to fall once again. Thick, heavy flakes, drifting lazily down from the dark sky, blanketing the roads and the fields in a perfectly smooth, white silence that hushes the entire world into a deep slumber. Let the gentle warmth of the hearth and the quiet, hypnotic rhythm of the falling snow carry you away, drifting slowly into a peaceful rest alongside the lonely traveler, waiting softly for the turning of the seasons and the gentle call of home. As the long, intricate tapestry of the early 16th century continues to unfold, the delicate political winds of Italy begin to shift, bringing a profound and entirely unexpected change to the quiet life of our dedicated clerk. The great, shifting powers of Europe inevitably find their way back to the gates of Florence, altering the familiar landscape of the Republic and ushering the exiled Medici family back into the grand palazzos of the city. For Niccolo, a man who has devoted 14 years of his life to the steady, methodical service of the Republican government, this transition marks the end of his long career in the Chancery. A harsh and confusing storm of political realignment sweeps through the ancient streets, leaving him dismissed from his cherished post and briefly entangled in a dark, bewildering period of profound misunderstanding. Yet, as with all storms, the heavy clouds eventually part, releasing him from the complicated, dangerous web of city politics and offering him a quiet, unexpected path toward an entirely different kind of life. With his diplomatic missions brought to a quiet close and his salary paused, Niccolo leaves behind the towering, marble facades and the echoing, shadowed halls of the Palazzo della Signoria. He packs his few belongings, stepping away from the heavy burdens of statecraft and makes the slow, deliberate journey 7 miles south of the city, out toward the rural village of San Casciano. Here, nestled among the rolling, sun-drenched hills of the Tuscan countryside, lies a modest, simple family farm, a small estate of ancient woodlands and quiet pastures that has belonged to the Machiavelli family for generations. Arriving at the small stone house, surrounded by the vast, open expanse of nature, he lets out a deep, exhausted sigh, feeling the immense weight of the past 14 years slowly lift from his tired shoulders. The air here is beautifully different, carrying the clean, raw scent of damp earth, wild thyme, and sun-warmed stone, offering a profound, grounding contrast to the dusty, ink-stained archives of his former life. In this peaceful rural sanctuary, the frantic, unpredictable demands of foreign kings and military commanders are entirely replaced by the slow, reliable turning of the natural seasons. Niccolo finds himself gently guided by a new, comforting rhythm, waking not to the tolling bells of the city clock, but to the soft, golden light of dawn creeping slowly over the eastern hills. He steps out of his modest farmhouse into the crisp, cool morning air, wrapping a thick, woven woolen cloak tightly around his shoulders to ward off the lingering chill of the night. The grass beneath his heavy leather boots is heavy with silver dew, and the world is wrapped in a beautiful, profound silence, broken only by the gentle rustling of the wind through the tall, dark cypress trees that guard the edges of his land. There is no rush here, no urgent dispatches waiting to be sealed, only the quiet, steady hum of the earth, slowly waking up to greet the warmth of the rising sun. His mornings are spent wandering slowly through the thick, sheltering woods that border his property, carrying a small, wooden cage and a bundle of carefully prepared snares to catch the thrushes and small songbirds that flutter through the upper branches. He walks with a quiet, measured pace, listening to the comforting crunch of fallen leaves and the soft snapping of dry twigs beneath his feet, finding a deep, meditative peace in the simple, solitary act of moving through the forest. Occasionally, he stops to check on the local woodcutters who are slowly clearing a section of his timber, their heavy iron axes striking the ancient trunks with a rhythmic, echoing thud that reverberates pleasantly through the quiet valley. He stands in the dappled shade exchanging warm, easy greetings with the laborers, arguing good-naturedly over the price of a cord of wood, finding a strange, beautiful comfort in these incredibly ordinary, human interactions that anchor him so deeply to the soil. As the morning slowly stretches into a warm, hazy afternoon, Niccolo turns his attention to the vast, sprawling olive groves that blanket the rolling hillsides in a shimmering sea of pale green and silver. He walks patiently up and down the long, neat rows of ancient trees, their thick, gnarled trunks twisted by decades of wind and rain, standing as silent, enduring witnesses to the passing generations. He runs his ink-stained hands gently over the rough, weathered bark, feeling the slow, steady pulse of life that flows beneath the surface, connecting him to the deep, unwavering roots of his ancestral home. During the harvest season, he watches the local peasants spread wide-woven nets across the soft ground, using long wooden poles to gently coax the ripe dark olives from the branches, filling the air with the rich peppery and incredibly grounding scent of freshly pressed oil. It is a life of pure, physical reality, entirely removed from the abstract, theoretical world of politics, a life that demands nothing more than patience, observation, and a quiet respect for the generous earth. When the physical chores of the farm are finally complete and the afternoon sun begins its long, slow descent toward the horizon, Niccolo makes his way down the winding, dusty path to the local village inn. This modest roadside tavern, with its low wooden beams and worn stone floors, becomes his new council chamber, a place filled with the warm, rich smells of roasting meat, spilled wine, and burning oak. He takes a seat at a heavy, scarred wooden table, pulling up a chair beside the village butcher, the local miller, and the men who work the nearby kilns, seamlessly blending into the loud, cheerful, and beautifully uncomplicated fabric of rural society. They play simple, traditional games of cards, slapping their hands on the table and laughing warmly over trivial wagers, arguing passionately about the local gossip and the unpredictable weather with the exact same intensity that diplomats once used to debate the fate of nations. For a man who has spent his entire adult life navigating the incredibly complex, deceitful halls of European power, There is a profound healing release in the absolute honesty of these simple countrymen. They do not care about his vast knowledge of Roman history or his deep understanding of statecraft. They only care about the cards in his hand and the shared, comfortable camaraderie of a lazy afternoon spent out of the sun. Niccolo leans back in his wooden chair holding a simple clay cup of dark, unaged local wine and simply observes the animated faces of his companions, his sharp, analytical mind resting quietly in the warm, comforting glow of their unpretentious friendship. He allows the heavy, lingering frustrations of his political exile to slowly wash away, dissolving completely into the rhythmic, soothing hum of the tavern, realizing that there is a unique and enduring beauty to be found in the quiet, unremarkable corners of the world. As the deep, rich colors of the sunset begin to fade, giving way to the cool, blue shadows of early evening, Niccolo bids a gentle farewell to his friends and steps back out into the quiet country air. The walk back to his farmhouse is slow and deeply peaceful, accompanied only by the rhythmic, hypnotic chirping of the crickets and the occasional distant call of a nightbird settling into the darkening woods. The vast, overarching sky above him slowly fills with a scattering of pale, glittering stars, incredibly bright and clear away from the smoke and haze of the city, offering a silent, breathtaking reminder of the vastness of the universe. Arriving at his modest home, he pauses for a long moment at the heavy wooden door, taking one last deep breath of the fragrant, cooling air, feeling his mind and body perfectly aligned, completely ready to step out of the dirt of the fields and transition into the profound, deeply meaningful quiet of the night. As the thick, comforting blanket of night settles firmly over the Tuscan countryside, painting the rolling hills in deep, soothing shades of indigo and slate, Niccolo steps through the heavy wooden door of his farmhouse, leaving the earthy hum of the day behind him. The air inside is beautifully cool and still, smelling faintly of dried lavender, wood ash, and the lingering, comforting warmth of the kitchen hearth that has slowly faded with the setting sun. He walks slowly down the narrow, dimly lit hallway toward his modest bedchamber, feeling the pleasant, grounding ache of physical labor in his muscles, an honest weariness that prepares his body for the profound rest to come. He is ready to shed the heavy, mud-stained clothes of a humble farmer, to leave behind the dirt of the fields and the simple, uncomplicated conversations of the village inn. He begins a quiet, deliberate ritual of transformation, a deeply personal transition that marks the boundary between the bright, physical world of the day and the quiet, intellectual sanctuary of the night. He peels away the dusty woolen tunic and the scuffed leather boots that have carried him through the silver olive groves and the dense, shadowed woods, folding them neatly on a wooden bench. Pouring cool, clear water from a heavy clay pitcher into a shallow basin, he washes his hands and face, feeling the refreshing, crystalline chill wash away the sweat and the fine dust of the Tuscan soil. This simple act of cleansing washes over his mind as well, gently clearing away the day's trivial concerns and the minor frustrations of rural life, leaving behind a perfectly clear, untroubled surface. The splashing of the water is a soft, rhythmic sound in the quiet house, a soothing prelude to the profound, meditative stillness that is about to gently unfold. Moving with a slow, almost reverent grace, Niccolo opens a heavy iron-bound chest resting at the foot of his bed, carefully lifting out a bundle of beautifully preserved clothing, the fine, elegant garments he once wore in the grand courts of Europe. He runs his ink-stained fingers over the smooth, rich velvet and the soft, finely woven linen, feeling the profound contrast against the rough, scratchy textures of his daily life, slowly slipping into the magnificent robes of a diplomat and a scholar. This act of dressing is not one of vanity or a desperate clinging to the past, but a profound gesture of respect, a way of honoring the quiet dignity of the work he is about to undertake. By wrapping himself in the heavy, comforting folds of his courtly attire, he is preparing his spirit to enter a completely different world, leaving the exiled farmer behind to become an honored guest in the halls of history. Dressed completely in his noble attire, he walks silently down the dark hallway and opens the heavy oak door to his small private study, a quiet, protected sanctuary where the noise of the present simply cannot reach. The room is softly illuminated by the warm, golden glow of a single thick beeswax candle, and the fading orange embers of the stone hearth casting long, peaceful shadows that dance gently and slowly across the smooth plaster walls. The air here is thick with the deeply comforting scent of old paper, binding glue, and the faint, sweet trace of the candle wax, creating an atmosphere of pure, uninterrupted contemplation. The heavy wooden shelves lining the room are filled with the worn, leather-bound volumes of ancient history and philosophy, their faded golden titles catching the flickering light, standing as patient, silent guardians of humanity's deepest and most enduring wisdom. He sits down at his sturdy wooden desk, the polished, familiar surface feeling remarkably smooth and cool beneath his fingertips, and opens the heavy, cream-colored pages of a large, blank ledger, pausing for a long, quiet moment to simply breathe. In this beautiful, uninterrupted solitude, he is no longer an exiled clerk or a forgotten diplomat. He is an equal among giants, sitting down to converse with the greatest minds of the ancient world. He closes his eyes and imagines the ancient Roman historians and Greek philosophers stepping quietly out of the shadows, their voices calm and perfectly measured, pulling up heavy wooden chairs around his dying fire. He welcomes them as dear, familiar friends, inviting them to share the profound, enduring truths they gathered during their own long lives, while the quiet room fills with the soft, imagined murmur of their timeless wisdom. Dipping his freshly sharpened quill into the dark, heavy glass inkwell, Niccolo begins to write, his hand moving in a slow, elegant, and deeply satisfying rhythm across the thick paper, translating these quiet conversations into clear, thoughtful prose. He is not writing a grand, sweeping manifesto or a loud, controversial declaration of politics, but merely keeping a quiet, reflective diary of human nature, a gentle sorting of his own deep thoughts. He seeks only to understand the delicate, complicated balance of the world he has observed for so many years, pulling the complex threads of history apart with a calm, patient, and deeply analytical eye. The scratching of the pen is a steady, comforting whisper in the silent room, a gentle, hypnotic sound that anchors his mind in the present while his thoughts wander freely and peacefully through the marble corridors of ancient Rome. The words that slowly and steadily fill the pages of his manuscript are a beautiful distillation of his 14 years of careful observation, a peaceful, methodical sorting of the memories, faces, and events that defined his former life. He thinks of the powerful kings, the calculating popes, and the ambitious commanders he met on his long, solitary journeys, analyzing their spectacular successes and their quiet failures entirely without judgment, anger, or lingering frustration. He views them instead with the gentle, detached curiosity of a careful botanist studying the intricate leaves of a complex plant, simply noting how the varying winds of fortune bend and shape the branches of human ambition. This quiet little book, which history will eventually call a famous manual for rulers, is simply his way of making sense of a deeply uncertain world, finding a comforting, underlying order beneath the chaotic, shifting surface of political life. As the deep, dark hours of the night drift softly by, the profound, heavy silence of the rural countryside wraps around the farmhouse like a thick, protective blanket, completely insulating the small study from the rushing, anxious currents of time. For these 4 precious hours every single night, Niccolo feels absolutely no boredom, no lingering sadness over his lost career, and no fear of the approaching dawn, entirely consumed by the pure, joyous act of intellectual exploration. He finds immense comfort in the steadfast companionship of his ancient friends, whose words provide a steady, unwavering light in the darkness, proving that the human experience remains beautifully consistent across the vast, sweeping centuries. He is perfectly content, suspended safely in a beautiful, timeless bubble where the heavy burdens of exile and the painful sting of his political dismissal simply dissolve into the warm, honeyed light of the slow-burning candle flame. Imagine the deep, radiating peace of the small, dimly lit room, the way the rich, soothing aromas of the study gently calm the mind and invite a profound, heavy sense of relaxation to wash over your entire body. You can almost feel the gentle, radiant warmth of the dying fire against your skin, a soft, comforting presence that perfectly mimics the slow, steady rhythm of your own deep breathing as you drift further and further into the quiet night. Niccolo is writing not just for the specific rulers of his own time, but for anyone who seeks to peacefully understand the quiet, enduring patterns of human behavior, reaching out across the vast ocean of time to offer a steady, guiding hand. His words flow onto the page like a calm, dark river, carrying away all the tension and the noise of the daylight hours, leaving behind only the pure, distilled essence of quiet, thoughtful reflection. Eventually, the thick candle begins to burn low, its small, golden flame trembling softly in the quiet, heavy air, signaling the gentle, natural end of this long, beautiful conversation with the ghosts of the past. Niccolo carefully cleans the dark ink from his silver quill, wiping the delicate feather with a soft, ink-stained cloth, and slowly, deliberately closes the heavy leather cover of his ledger, letting the quiet sound of the settling pages echo faintly in the still room. He leans back in his sturdy wooden chair, his mind pleasantly exhausted and his heart deeply fulfilled, turning his head to look out the dark, narrow window at the vast scattering of pale, silver stars that watch silently over the sleeping Tuscan hills. Let the profound, unwavering peace of his midnight study settle deep into your own tired thoughts, carrying you softly away into the comforting, enveloping embrace of a dreamless rest, where the voices of the past whisper only a beautiful serenity and endless calm. As the long, quiet years drift softly by, the heavy, isolating blanket of his rural exile begins to gently lift, carrying away the lingering frustrations of his past and replacing them with a profound, enduring sense of acceptance. The deep, solitary nights spent conversing with the ancient Romans in his dimly lit study have slowly healed his spirit, softening the harsh edges of his political disappointments and transforming his quiet reflections into a deep, well-earned wisdom. Time, moving with the slow, patient rhythm of a vast, calm river, gradually draws Niccolo away from the secluded borders of his country farm and guides him peacefully back toward the edges of the city he has always loved. He does not return as a powerful diplomat or a busy clerk rushing through the echoing halls of the Chancery, but rather as a quiet, thoughtful elder, a man who has traveled through the turbulent storms of the world and emerged into the warm, tranquil light of a beautiful afternoon. Imagine a magnificent, sprawling sanctuary hidden just within the ancient stone walls of Florence, a lush, beautifully manicured paradise known to the citizens simply as the Orti or Oricellari, the beautiful gardens of the Restful family. As you step softly through the heavy iron gates, leaving the dusty, sun-baked streets behind, the air immediately cools, wrapping you in the incredibly soothing, fragrant embrace of blooming jasmine, sweet orange blossoms, and ancient, towering pines. The canopy of thick green leaves filters the bright afternoon sun into a delicate, shifting mosaic of dappled light that dances slowly across the smooth, winding gravel paths, inviting you to wander without any sense of purpose or destination. Here, hidden away from the noisy markets and the busy merchant squares, nature and art blend together in perfect, harmonious balance, offering a quiet refuge where the mind can truly rest and breathe. Niccolo walks slowly down these shaded avenues, his steps measured and deeply relaxed, listening to the gentle, rhythmic crunch of the gravel beneath his soft leather shoes and the pleasant, distant bubbling of a carved marble fountain. He breathes in the clean, earthy scent of damp moss and sun-warmed stone, running his hand gently over the smooth, cool surfaces of the antique statues that stand quietly among the dark ivy, silent guardians of this peaceful paradise. This garden has become his new council chamber, entirely free from the heavy burdens of statecraft and the deceptive whispers of foreign courts, replacing the stressful demands of politics with the pure, uncomplicated joy of intellectual companionship. He is no longer walking alone through the dark, snowy passes of the Alps, or sitting by himself in a solitary country inn, but is instead surrounded by a warm, welcoming circle of bright, eager minds who gather peacefully under the shade of the great trees. These are the younger men of Florence, the poets, the scholars, and the gentle dreamers of the new generation who come to the garden seeking the deep, quiet resonance of his lived experience. They arrange themselves comfortably on smooth stone benches or recline gently on the soft, manicured grass, leaning in to listen as Niccolo speaks in a calm, melodic voice that carries the rich, comforting weight of decades spent observing the world. There is absolutely no rush in these gatherings, no frantic arguments or harsh disagreements, only the slow, beautiful unfolding of shared thoughts, floating effortlessly through the warm afternoon air, like the delicate seeds of a dandelion carried by a soft breeze. They talk of ancient history, of the graceful turning of the stars, and of the quiet, enduring virtues of humanity, exploring the deep mysteries of life with a patient, respectful curiosity that binds them together in a profound, intellectual brotherhood. As he sits among his new friends, the dappled sunlight warming his face, Niccolo finds himself naturally weaving the quiet, isolated thoughts of his midnight study into a beautiful, expansive tapestry of shared wisdom. He is no longer writing a lonely manual for rulers, but is instead carefully crafting his longest and most thoughtful work, the Discourses, a deeply romantic love letter to the enduring ideals of a free and peaceful republic. He speaks to the young men about the profound beauty of a society where citizens work together in perfect, balanced harmony, comparing a healthy state to a magnificent, intricate clock where every small piece moves in gentle, flawless cooperation with the others. He teaches them that true stability is not found in the harsh grip of a single, powerful ruler, but in the quiet, shared compromises of a community that learns to balance its differences through patient understanding and respectful dialogue. This vision of collective harmony washes over the garden like a soothing balm, completely removing the sharp, competitive anxieties of daily life and replacing them with a deeply comforting sense of belonging. The young scholars listen with wide, appreciative eyes, absorbing his gentle lessons not merely as political theory, but as a beautiful, poetic guide to living a meaningful life in harmony with the people around them. Niccolo looks at their bright, untroubled faces and feels a profound, deeply grounding sense of legacy, realizing that he does not need an official title or a grand office to shape the future of his beloved city. He is quietly planting seeds of wisdom in the fertile soil of their young minds, knowing with a calm, peaceful certainty that these ideas will eventually grow and blossom long after his own physical journey has come to its natural end. The conversation ebbs and flows with the slow, soothing rhythm of the ocean tide, punctuated by long, comfortable silences where the men simply sit together, watching a solitary bird trace lazy circles in the clear blue sky, or listening to the gentle rustle of the wind through the tall cypress trees. These moments of shared stillness are just as deeply meaningful as the words they speak, creating an invisible, comforting bond of mutual respect that anchors them all safely in the present moment. Niccolo leans back against the smooth, curved back of his stone bench, closing his eyes and allowing the incredibly peaceful atmosphere of the garden to completely saturate his senses. Feeling the lingering tension of his past dissolve entirely into the soft, fragrant air, he has finally found a true sanctuary. A quiet, protected space where his brilliant mind can roam freely without the heavy armor of diplomacy, resting comfortably in the pure, unadulterated pleasure of human connection. As the long afternoon slowly transitions into the golden hour of early evening, the light in the garden begins to change, taking on a rich, warm hue of amber and pale rose that bathes the statues and the trees in a breathtaking, ethereal glow. The shadows stretch out long and peaceful across the manicured lawns, signaling the gentle, natural conclusion of their gathering. And the young men begin to slowly rise, brushing the stray blades of grass from their soft linen tunics. They bid Niccolo a warm, respectful farewell, their voices soft and full of genuine affection, before turning to wander slowly down the winding gravel paths, leaving him alone in the profound, comforting quiet of the beautiful garden. He remains seated on the stone bench for a long, tranquil moment, watching the colors of the sunset slowly deepen and listening to the evening song of the nightingales beginning to echo softly through the branches above. The air grows pleasantly cool, carrying the sweet, restorative scent of the evening dew settling onto the thirsty earth, wrapping the world in a delicate, refreshing embrace that prepares the mind for the coming night. Let the soothing, harmonious peace of the Oricellari gardens settle deeply into your own thoughts, carrying you softly away into a serene, untroubled rest, where the gentle murmur of wise voices fades beautifully into the perfect, comforting silence of the natural world. As the warm, golden afternoons in the garden slowly give way to the quieter, deeper shadows of his later years, Niccolo finds himself gently retreating once more into the comforting, familiar embrace of his quiet study. He is older now, his hair thinning and turning the soft color of spun silver, and his physical steps are taken on the slow, deliberate, and incredibly patient pace of a man who no longer feels the slightest need to rush toward the future. The fiery, passionate ambitions of his youth and the lingering, complicated frustrations of his long exile have all slowly burned down to a gentle, steady, and beautifully warm ember, leaving behind a profound sense of calm acceptance. The rulers of Florence, perhaps finally recognizing the deep, unwavering wisdom that resides quietly in his mind, offer him a new, peaceful task, asking him to weave together the long, intricate history of their beloved city. It is a quiet, respectful commission, a gentle acknowledgement of his enduring connection to the Republic, and he accepts it with the peaceful grace of an elder who has finally come to terms with the beautiful, imperfect world around him. He sits entirely alone at his heavy, familiar oak desk, surrounded not by the urgent, sealed dispatches of a busy diplomat, but by the thick, dusty archives of centuries past. He surrounds himself with heavy leather-bound ledgers, crumbling letters tied with faded ribbons, and the elegant fading script of historians who walked the cobblestones long before he was even born, breathing in the rich, comforting scent of dry parchment, old binding glue, and soft dust. As he dips his worn silver quill into the dark, heavy inkwell, he is no longer trying to shape the immediate, chaotic future of the state, but is instead carefully preserving the deep, enduring memories of the past, slowly stitching together a vast, magnificent tapestry of time. He writes of the ancient families, the quiet turning of the political seasons, and the beautiful, slow growth of the city's grand architecture, blending his own lived experiences perfectly into the sweeping narrative of Florentine history. The scratching of his pen is slower now, far more thoughtful and measured, a soft, rhythmic lullaby that gently rocks the centuries to sleep upon the thick, cream-colored pages. This slow, meditative immersion into the deep, quiet past brings a profound sense of perspective to his weary mind, gently washing away the minor, fleeting concerns of the present day. When you spend your quiet hours wandering peacefully through the vast, shadowed corridors of history, observing how generations rise and slowly fade away like the turning of autumn leaves, the urgent anxieties of a single human life begin to lose their sharp, heavy edges. Niccolo looks back on his own complicated journey, the long, solitary rides through the snowy Alps, the echoing marble halls of the Chancery, and the quiet, star-filled nights on his rural farm, viewing them all through the gentle, deeply forgiving lens of time. He sees his life not as a series of grand triumphs or bitter failures, but simply as one small, beautiful thread woven into a fabric that is far greater than himself, finding a deep, comforting peace in knowing that he has played his part entirely and well. In the late afternoons, when the bright, glaring light of the day begins to soften into the delicate, bruised colors of twilight, he leaves his quiet study and takes a slow, peaceful walk through the winding, narrow streets of Florence. He moves gently among the crowds of merchants and craftsmen, a quiet, unseen observer wrapped safely in a heavy, dark woolen cloak, watching a new generation of citizens go about their daily routines with the exact same energy and purpose that he once possessed. He watches the young apprentices carrying heavy bolts of colorful silk, the bakers pulling warm, fragrant bread from the stone ovens, and the children playing simple games on the steps of the ancient piazzas, feeling a profound, uncomplicated love for the enduring spirit of his home. They do not know him as a famous writer or a seasoned diplomat. They simply see a quiet, thoughtful older man walking slowly through the cooling shadows, and in this peaceful anonymity, he finds a wonderful, liberating sense of true freedom. He eventually finds his way back to the familiar curved stone walls of the River Arno, the exact same spot where he stood as a young boy so many long years ago, watching the water flow gracefully under the arches of the ancient bridges. The river is a beautiful, silent companion, its dark, moving surface reflecting the soft, fading light of the pastel sky, carrying the fallen leaves and small twigs slowly and inevitably toward the distant, unseen sea. As he rests his weathered hands on the cool, damp stone of the bridge, feeling the rough texture that has been smoothed by centuries of rain, he realizes that human history is just like this quiet, endless river, constantly moving, constantly changing, yet always remaining fundamentally the same. The kings and the armies, the grand palaces and the heavy vaulted chanceries, They all rise and fall like the gentle ripples on the surface, while the deep, quiet current of ordinary human life simply continues to flow, endlessly patient and enduring. The sky above the distant rolling hills of Tuscany slowly transitions from a pale, delicate lavender to a deep, rich shade of indigo, signaling the gentle closing of the day and the soft, quiet approach of the restful night. The grand dome of the cathedral stands as a dark, majestic silhouette against the fading light, a testament to human patience watching silently over the city as the first few stars begin to emerge in the vast, overarching sky, twinkling softly like tiny, distant candles in the dark. Niccolo takes a deep, slow breath of the cooling evening air, feeling a profound, heavy sense of physical and mental weariness settle comfortably into his bones, the natural, beautiful exhaustion of a life that has been deeply and fully lived. He turns away from the peaceful river and begins the slow, familiar walk back to his modest home, his mind perfectly quiet, his heart completely full, absolutely ready to lay down the heavy burdens of thought and simply rest in the comforting embrace of the evening. Imagine the deep, profound stillness of his study as he finally returns, slowly closing the thick, leather-bound book of Florentine history for the night, the soft, heavy thud of the cover echoing gently in the quiet room. He does not need to write anymore. He does not need to analyze the complex shifting winds of power or unravel the deep mysteries of human nature, because he has finally said everything that he needed to say, leaving his quiet legacy perfectly intact. The dark ink dries completely upon the page, preserving his thoughtful words for the generations yet to come, while the man himself slowly drifts away from the physical world, untethered from the heavy demands of time and space. Let the soft fading light of the historian's twilight wash over your own tired mind, gently carrying away the lingering thoughts of the day, leaving you perfectly weightless, floating peacefully on the quiet, endless river of time, drifting slowly and softly toward a deep, untroubled slumber. As the year 1527 slowly unfolds, the gentle, golden light of the Florentine spring begins to warm the ancient stone streets once more, signaling the quiet turning of yet another season. Niccolo is 58 years old now, his body deeply tired from a long, full life of travel, observation, and relentless thought. His physical strength gradually ebbing away like the slow, peaceful, outgoing tide. He lies quietly in his modest bedchamber, surrounded by the familiar, comforting scent of worn leather, dried herbs, and the soft beeswax candles that have illuminated so many of his long, midnight conversations with the past. Outside his window, the city continues its eternal rhythmic hum, completely unaware that one of its most dedicated and thoughtful sons is preparing to take his final, gentle steps away from the noise of the waking world. There are no grand, sweeping dramas here in this quiet room, no dramatic proclamations or loud historical farewells, only the deeply comforting presence of his family and his closest friends. They sit softly by his bedside, speaking in hushed, soothing tones, sharing quiet memories and gentle laughter that float through the warm air like delicate dust motes caught in a shaft of afternoon sunlight. Niccolo listens to their familiar voices, feeling a profound, heavy sense of peace settle over his tired mind, resting in the beautiful certainty that he is surrounded entirely by love and profound respect. The painful sting of his past political exiles, the bitter frustrations of lost careers, and the heavy burdens of his deep intellect simply dissolve into the quiet, supportive embrace of his home, leaving behind a perfectly clear, untroubled calm. When the end finally comes in the warm days of June, it arrives not as a frightening storm, but as a gentle, welcome sleep, a soft closing of the eyes after a wonderfully long and beautiful day. His breathing slowly deepens, aligning perfectly with the quiet, ancient rhythm of the earth itself, until it simply softens into the silent, overarching peace of the universe, releasing him entirely from the heavy pull of time. He slips away so quietly, transitioning smoothly from the physical world of parchment and ink into the profound, enduring stillness of history, leaving behind a legacy of deeply human observation that will quietly outlive the grandest empires. It is a wonderfully ordinary passing for a man whose mind was so extraordinary, a beautifully quiet rest for the weary clerk who loved his republic far more than he ever loved himself. It is a strange and beautiful irony that history would eventually paint this quiet, observant man in the harsh, dramatic colors of ruthlessness and dark cunning, entirely missing the gentle, beating heart that lived beneath his words. Future generations would turn his name into a heavy symbol of deceit, completely forgetting the lonely traveler who found profound joy in the simple songs of birds and the honest, uncomplicated laughter of rural farmers at a village inn. But here in the quiet, empty spaces of the night, we have seen the truth of the man who simply sought to understand the complicated world around him, who wrote his books, not out of malice, but out of a deep, abiding hope for stability and peace. We have peeled back the thick, heavy layers of myth to find a solitary scholar sitting by a dying fire, entirely human, remarkably patient, and wonderfully complex. Today, if you walk softly through the cool, echoing nave of the magnificent Basilica of Santa Croce, you will eventually find him resting peacefully beneath a grand monument of smooth, polished marble. The air in this sacred space is beautifully still and wonderfully cool, carrying the faint, sweet scent of ancient incense and the quiet, comforting weight of centuries of silent prayer. High above, narrow shafts of vibrant, colored light filter through the magnificent stained glass windows, painting the worn stone floors in delicate pools of ruby, sapphire, and gold that slowly shift with the passing of the sun. It is an incredibly peaceful sanctuary, completely removed from the busy, rushing world outside, offering a profound, enduring silence that wraps perfectly around the resting souls of Florence's greatest minds. Imagine yourself standing quietly in that vast, beautiful space, letting the profound stillness of the marble and the soft, dancing light completely wash over your own tired mind, gently carrying away the final, lingering thoughts of your day. The long, winding journey through the snowy Alps, the sunlit olive groves, and the dusty, peaceful archives is finally over, and there is absolutely nothing left to do but surrender to the deep, comforting embrace of perfect rest. Let the slow, patient rhythm of Niccolo's quiet life guide your own breathing, feeling the heavy, beautiful weight of relaxation settle deeply into your muscles, completely untethering you from the rushing currents of the waking world. The candle finally flickers out, the ink dries upon the page, and the heavy book of history gently closes, leaving only the quiet, timeless peace of the Florentine night.